The enterprise AI agent market in May 2026 presents a brutal reality. We are looking at a genuine build versus buy decision for the very first time, and the financial stakes here are absolutely massive. This decision, it's no longer just about where your code lives. It is entirely about where your agent contract lives, who fundamentally owns the data plane, and ultimately, your 3-year total cost of ownership. And as we're going to see in this explainer, the entire calculus hinges on one specific, unforgiving metric, a 1 million conversation threshold.
To understand exactly why that threshold exists, we have to look at the structural economics of the market. This right here brilliantly illustrates the core conflict: convex versus concave pricing. Packaged buy-side platforms operate on a convex cost curve. Your pricing grows linearly with volume. So at a list price of $2 per conversation, every single session costs you that exact same marginal dollar, regardless of your cumulative spend. Custom builds, on the other hand, operate on a concave curve based on per-token pricing. The marginal cost of token consumption actually drops over time. Why? Because your engineering teams can optimize it. They're using prompt compression, model routing, caching. So your total inference spend grows much slower than your actual usage.
Which brings us to the crucial point: 1 million. 1 million conversations per year. For a standard 500-seat enterprise deploying a complex workflow agent, think of a cross-system order-to-cash or a multi-step HR workflow, this is the definitive crossover point. Below 1 million sessions, buying a packaged platform wins out on speed and integration simplicity. But the literal second your enterprise crosses that 1 million mark, the 3-year total cost of ownership flips dramatically, forcing an immediate, mandatory strategic recalibration.
Section 1. Analytical pricing post-mortem. Let's move past the theory and do a rigorous, granular breakdown of these specific vendor architectures to expose the severe financial implications they carry at scale.
Look at the sheer scale of the convexity trap at 10 million sessions shown here. It's a massive asymmetry. Salesforce Agentforce, at list price, scales linearly right up to $20 million a year before you even get to any volume negotiations. In stark contrast, a custom build using the Claude SDK and Amazon Bedrock comes in at approximately $6.8 million in year one. And that includes an estimated $5.4 million for inference, plus $1.4 million in engineering and ops. That multi-million-dollar gap, it's structural. It's inescapable.
But let's scale it down for a second. Drop down to the 100K low-volume band, and the reality completely reverses. At 100,000 conversations a year, buy-side platforms win, and they win decisively. A Microsoft Copilot Studio deployment totals roughly $546,000 over 3 years. A Claude SDK build runs approximately $475,000 sure, but it demands heavy upfront engineering costs. At this low volume, the engineering tax of a custom build is simply not amortized fast enough to justify the effort, or honestly, the headaches over a 3-year horizon.
Let's dissect the actual mechanics of those buy paths, starting with Microsoft Copilot Studio. Microsoft utilizes a stacked pricing model. First, you've got the $30 per user per month floor for the base Microsoft 365 Copilot seat. Copilot Studio is then layered on top of that as a metered product, historically anchored at $200 a month for a 25,000 message pack. But here's the critical variable you absolutely have to watch out for: the multi-model tax. Complex agentic workflows in Copilot Cow aren't flat rate. Activating critic mode adds a 20% premium. Need counsel mode for multi-agent deliberation? That runs 2.5 times the baseline cost.
Over on the Salesforce side, Agentforce is anchored at $2 per complete interaction session. And yes, they are signaling a move toward flex credits at 40 cents a credit, but that convex nature, it remains. However, Agentforce's massive advantage is native CRM integration. If 80% of your agent interactions require reading and writing Salesforce objects, like cases or contacts, this zero integration cost avoids months of expensive engineering. You are literally buying time to value, provided you stay within strict volume limits.
And this brings us right back to that 1 million session crossover threshold. When we project a 3-year total cost of ownership for a complex workflow agent at this specific volume, the custom build path begins to dominate. A Claude SDK build totals roughly $2.52 million over 3 years, primarily as those engineering costs normalize in years 2 and 3. Meanwhile, Salesforce Agentforce stretches out to $6.18 million at list price. The per-token economics simply crush the per-conversation model on a multi-year horizon. So, for organizations that do cross that volume threshold, the 2026 default build path is the Claude Agent SDK deployed on Amazon Bedrock, Why? Well, first, Anthropic achieved 34.4% business AI adoption in early 2026, completely overtaking OpenAI in enterprise tooling. Second, the per-token economics of the Sonnet 4.6 model, which is priced at $3 input and $15 output per million tokens, means a really heavy 30,000 token conversation costs just 54 cents. That is a massive, game-changing operational saving compared to Agentforce's standard list pricing.
Which brings us to Section 2, structural friction and consolidation. Because raw math is only half the equation here. We have to shift from pure cost models to the structural realities that are complicating this entire landscape. Unmentioned architectural debts and systemic variables are aggressively reshaping the buy-side and build-side dynamics as we speak.
The single most consequential buy-side signal of May 2026 wasn't actually a software announcement. It was a massive consolidation wave by the Big Four professional services firms. Deloitte, with its 470,000 employees, PwC targeting a 364,000-person workforce, and KPMG, they all standardize on Claude. Meanwhile, EY went in the completely opposite direction, launching a $1 billion initiative to go Microsoft first.
And this brilliantly illustrates a phenomenon known as the vendor co-selection effect. When Fortune 1000 enterprises rely on Big Four implementation partners, they inevitably inherit their partners' foundation model choices. Think about it. If your CIO hires Deloitte or KPMG, your default architecture will automatically be Claude Agent SDK patterns and Claude native tooling. The choice of implementation partner implicitly dictates your entire enterprise infrastructure.
Furthermore, the buy market is now fundamentally a Claude market under the hood anyway. SAP Joule Autonomous Enterprise, it runs on Claude as its primary reasoning engine. Salesforce Agentforce routes right through Claude underneath the Einstein trust layer. This means that choosing a package platform is no longer a separate decision from choosing a foundation model. The model choice is entirely inseparable from the platform choice.
And let's not ignore the extreme capital movements injecting severe acquisition and consolidation risk into both of these paths. OpenAI launched its $4 billion DeployCo professional services vehicle, while Anthropic closed a massive $1.5 billion joint venture with Blackstone and Goldman Sachs. Whether you build for per-token control or you buy for license-level predictability, neither path guarantees stability against vendor acquisitions and structural market shifts.
Section 3. Tactical Deployment System Gates. Given these volatile market dynamics, organizations need a rigid chronological action plan. So let's map out 3 explicit tactical gates dictating exact organizational decisions based on the data.
Gate 1 is simple and definitive. If your projected volume is under 500,000 conversations per year, you have a decisive buy signal. The engineering overhead required for a custom build simply will not amortize over 3 years. You need to prioritize speed to value and match your existing enterprise resource planning or CRM system. Use Copilot Studio for Microsoft native environments or Agentforce for Salesforce.
Gate 2 is the volatile middle band between 500,000 and 2 million sessions per year. Here, the total cost of ownership is incredibly tight. Cost actually takes a back seat to non-financial overriding factors. If your workflow requires deep, complex ERP integration, buy-side platforms win. But if you have strict data sovereignty requirements, handling personally identifiable information or highly sensitive legal data, the build path becomes mandatory so you can maintain end-to-end control of your data plane.
Gate 3 confirms the high-volume reality. Above 2 million sessions per year, per-token economics absolutely dominate the conversation. The convexity of packaged platform pricing turns into a massive, multi-million-dollar liability. At this scale, a custom architecture utilizing the Claude Agents SDK or OpenAI Agents SDK isn't just an option, it's a mandatory strategic imperative.
There is, however, one explicit exception to all of this logic: the ERP exception. If your enterprise is already deeply locked into SAP Rise, SAP Grow, or ServiceNow, agent capability is often bundled. For example, SAP's 50-plus Joule assistants orchestrating across autonomous finance and supply chain are included in the Business AI platform at literally no additional charge for Rise customers. If your marginal cost for the platform is 0, the buy path wins, regardless of your volume.
So what is the ultimate takeaway from this explainer? It's understanding the true cost of convenience. The model choice is no longer separable from the platform choice. Buying SAP Joule or Salesforce Agentforce is implicitly buying Claude at a massive margin markup. As a leader navigating 2026, you face a permanent, high-stakes structural decision. Will you own your AI infrastructure and meticulously manage those per-token economics, or will you rent it at a permanent, convex premium,
The math is on the table, the choice is yours.